Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today, we're going to go over some rules of the present perfect because I know this is quite a difficult issue for you. So, let's just talk first of all about when we use it. Well, first of all, the present perfect exists to talk about things outside of time. Okay, so if the question involves time or is somehow about time, then of course you need to use the past tense. Where were you yesterday? I was in the bar. Why were you not at work yesterday? I was sick. Okay. The past tense, as I've given you examples there, is a big archive of time and dates, but not everything fits into that very well. Things which have been completed recently don't fit into the past very well. And also, things which have been ongoing for some time and aren't finished also don't fit into the past tense very well. I've been washing this car for an hour now. It's not finished, so you can't say, for example, I washed the car. Let's stay with that for a moment, okay? What's the difference between I washed the car and I have washed the car? Because in this case, both actions are complete. I washed, it's finished. I have washed, it's also finished. So what's the difference between those two things? Well, let me explain. I washed the car is answering the question, what did you do at 3 o'clock? I washed the car. We're back to that big archive of time and date, which the past tense fits into. Okay? I have washed the car has nothing to do with time. It's just saying that I've done it. It is complete. I have washed it. So it's no longer about when I washed it. It's answering the question, what have you done? I have washed the car. Time in this case is not important. So let's just reflect on that a little bit further with these examples. Okay. I washed the car is answering the question, what were you doing at 3 o'clock today? Oh, I washed the car, or I was washing the car. And in the present perfect, what have you been doing? Oh, I've washed the car. Or what have you done? I've washed the car. Now, think about the implications of this. Imagine you're out with a group of friends, you all go to the coffee shop, and your friend says, hey, how have you been? If you begin saying, oh, I went to the shops, I walked the dog, I won Customer Services Person of the Year award at work, your friend will say, okay, I didn't really need to know a list of events. I'm only asking what you've been doing. So your past tense there is not appropriate. But imagine that you meet a friend that you don't want to talk to. Maybe not a friend then, maybe an enemy. And they say, hey, how have you been? Or how are you? And if you say, well, I was fine, it means I was fine until I met you. So you see, you're giving a very subtle message there. Usually, when we go to work on Monday mornings, our colleagues ask, hey, how was your weekend? And that's because they're looking for solid times and dates. Oh, I went to the park with the kids. Did you see the storm on Saturday? Wasn't it terrible? They don't really care. If they did care, they would say, how has your weekend been? Yeah. Or they might ask it in a different way using the present perfect. And that would give you the chance to respond, oh, it's been fine. Yeah, it's good. Although usually we don't use the continuous because that might indicate that it's not over yet. So it would be better to say something like, it had been fine, using the past perfect, and then you can change it to build up to the present perfect. Yeah, it had been fine. Thanks for asking. Um, I've been very busy with the kids recently, so I didn't get the chance to enjoy it so much. You can vary your tenses so it's not so time focused, and this is really very, very important. If you don't do this, then you're kind of shutting down conversations. The present perfect is always the language of emotions, of poets, of philosophers. But if you don't want to give too much emotion in a conversation, you can simply talk using time, which is the past tense. Okay? Let me just give you an example of that. You are sick, you go to work the next day, your boss says, "Hey, where were you yesterday?" And he's only asking because of his Excel spreadsheet he has to update. He doesn't care. He just types on there, let's see, um, Laura was sick yesterday. But if your mother asks, "Hey, where were you yesterday? I didn't hear from you," and you say, "Oh, I was sick," you know there is not enough information because she wants to know all about the actions. She's not really concerned about time. She wants to know exactly how you have been. "Oh, really? How are you now? How have you been? Had you visited a doctor? Had you been very sick? What did it look like?" So for her, time is not important. So she's going to jump into the past perfect, leading up to the present perfect, leading up to now. These are just a few examples, okay? So the first question she's going to ask, "How have you been?" Uh, and from there, you can examine your sickness in either the past or present, but it's not so important. All right. Now, I jumped between the past perfect and the present perfect there. I just want to give you a couple of examples before I finish with that. So, the past perfect is used when we start further back in the story. So, as I mentioned to you, the past tense is only ever about time, but the past perfect is how we talk about an action that took place before another action. So there's still no time, but with the past perfects, you must jump to another tense to end it. For example, I remember once I had been walking in the street and I met my friend. So I started with the past perfect and then I jumped to the past. Once I went to Spain to live, but now I am happy in the UK. So again, I started and then jumped forward after using the past perfects. Okay. So in the case of being sick, your mother might say, "Oh my goodness, you've been sick. How can I help?" Okay, so she's not going to say, "Oh, you are sick," because she doesn't care about time. So the present perfect is the language of emotion and also the language of the arts. And it also allows you to talk about those things which are infinite. It would be a bit weird if you said, "Yeah, I loved my daughter yesterday, but I don't love her today." So you see what I mean? Love is such a big subject. It doesn't easily fit into things like the past tense because it's one of those things which is always with us. So you have a choice as well when you can use the past tense or the present perfect, depending on how emotional you feel. If it's your colleague, you can ask, "How was your weekend?" Or simply, "Hey, how has your weekend been?" or what have you been doing at the weekend would maybe be a more appropriate thing to ask since it's over now. What have you been doing at the weekend? So those things make you more open to relationships and friendships than using the past tense. People that use the past tense all the time are people who are either closed emotionally or are people who don't want to use it. Just to end on that, Americans don't often use the past tense, and that's because just culturally they don't use it. But you've heard the stereotype. We all think Americans are very rude and loud, and that's probably where it comes from. Something as simple as not using the present perfect, you know? They love the past tense over there. That's it for me. I hope this has been helpful. Let's talk again soon. Bye.